All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. Now, we're less than 2 weeks away from the start of the 2022 college football season, and there are plenty of questions that have to be answered. And today I'm going to be talking about the upcoming season in the Pac-12 conference. And of course, if you have not been following, the Pac-12 has to get ready for an adjustment period, if you will, as longtime staples in the conference, USC and UCLA, have made it be known that they will be parting soon for the Big Ten Conference. But with that said, both Southern California and UCLA are still card carrying members of the Pac 12 Conference. And let's see how things fare out for all 12 teams in the Pacific 12 for this upcoming season. Now, I'm going to start in the Pac 12 North, and you look at Oregon as they lost Mario Cristobal, their head football coach, to Miami. And now Georgia assistant Dan Lanning is taking over. And Lanning did not head west without some help from the SEC, as former Auburn quarterback Bo Nix has made the trek to Eugene. Now, one thing that Lanning does inherit, he inherits an experienced offensive line. We're talking about four seniors up front, and that's going to be important. Also, keep an eye out for sophomore linebacker Noah Sewell, as he'll definitely have an impact for Oregon. Now, right out of the chute, Oregon will travel to Atlanta, and it'll be a homecoming, if you will, for Lanning, as he'll be taking on Georgia, the defending national champions. And two key games for Oregon and their Pac 12 slate will be at home, one against UCLA on the 22nd of October, and then Utah on the 19th of November, as both of these contests can go a long way in determining who will get to the Pac 12 championship game. Now, Oregon's neighbors in the state of Oregon, of course, coming out of Corvallis. I'm talking about the Beavers, led by head coach Jonathan Smith, and they're looking to build off of last year's. They got their first winning season since 2013. Junior quarterback Chance Nolan has been steady. You look at running back Deshaun Fenwick; he can be another impact player this year for the Beavers. And then, of course, on the defensive side of the football, keep an eye on junior inside linebacker Omar Spates. Now, some games to circle for Oregon State this year. They host USC on the 24th of September. They're at Utah on the 1st of October. And then, of course, the Civil War with Oregon on the 25th of November. For Washington, Kalen DeBoer is looking to turn things around for the Huskies. They're going to be up and down this season, I really feel. They get Michael Penix at quarterback, the Indiana transfer, but for Washington, they have an interesting schedule to say the least. They host Michigan State out of the Big Ten on the 17th of September. They're at UCLA on the 30th of September, at Arizona State on the 8th of October. They host Oregon State on November 4th. They're at Washington on November 12th, and then they're at Washington State in the Apple Cup on the 26th of November. Now, for Stanford, I think they need to get back to what they were during the first part of David Shaw's tenure as a head coach. And when Stanford was at their best, they dominated things in the trenches on both sides of the football. That has not been the case in recent years, and I think Stanford needs to get back to that. This year, the Cardinals should have some more success from that, if you will, as they have two seniors and three juniors up front on that offensive line, and that's going to be important to have that cohesion. You have an experienced quarterback back there in Tanner McKee, and that as well is going to be important for the Cardinal as they look to make some noise in the Pac 12 this year. Now, of course, Stanford has their yearly jaunt with USC. They will host the Men of Troy on September 10th. They're at Washington on September 24th. They're at Oregon on the 1st of October, at Notre Dame on October 15th. They're home for Arizona State on October 22nd. They're at UCLA on the 29th of October, at Utah on the 12th of November, and at Cal on the 19th of November. So, of course, not an easy slate. And, staying in the north for Washington State, and Cal. I really think it's going to be tough for either one of them to keep up with the competition, with the rest of the competition in the Pac-12 North because it's really top heavy. Washington State, I think, could flirt with getting bowl eligible, but it's going to be difficult, and I think it's going to be even tougher for the Golden Bears. Now, going ahead to the Pac-12 South, and you look at UCLA, and after UCLA and Chip Kelly were finally able to get over the hump last year and get it going, will they be able to build off of that in order to win the Pac-12? First and foremost, everything that UCLA is looking to accomplish starts with their quarterback, DTR. And of course, DTR is not only one of the or the better explosive playmakers in the Pac-12 conference, he's also one of the most exciting players in the country. Just a lot of people have not seen him due to the fact that UCLA has really not been, a national power. And then, of course, a lot of people on the East Coast don't really follow the proceedings of the Pac-12, but DTR definitely has an opportunity to be the Pac-12 Offensive Player of the Year this year. You look at running back Zach Charbonnet; he came over from Michigan last year, and he showed that combo of explosiveness and power. That's once again going to be on Front Street if UCLA wants to be in the mix to win the Pac-12. Again, another experienced offensive line here. I'm seeing four seniors and one junior up front, and that's going to be important. And now I think UCLA has an opportunity to get ahead of this thing, if you will, because now Kelly has been there long enough to establish his program, get his guys in. And I think the Bruins could make some noise this year in the Pac 12. They host Utah this year, and that's going to be a huge game as far as seeing who wins the Pac 12 South. They're at Oregon on the 22nd of October. And then, of course, they host the Men of Troy on the 19th of November. Now, you look at Utah, and Utah, they surprised some people last year as they were able to win the Pac 12 for the first time and, of course, get their first Rose Bowl bid. And they're going to try to go back and defend that crown. And it's not going to be as easy because, Utah lost some key players from last year's team, most notably Devin Lloyd. But for Kyle Whittingham and his crew, you still have junior quarterback Cam Rising, who showed that he's an accurate passer and he's also a solid runner of the football. And I also think that junior running back Tavion Thomas could once again have an impact for the Utes. Now, right out of the chute, Utah is going to travel east and they're going to take on Florida out of the SEC. And if you follow the Utes under Kyle Whittingham, they will travel any place, anywhere, anytime to take on any team in the nation. The Utes are going to be at UCLA on the 8th of October. And like I said before, this is going to be a big game in determining who wins the Pac 12 South. The same can be said when Utah will host USC on the 15th of October. And then, of course, at Oregon on the 19th of November, which should be a big one. Now, for the Men of Troy, things have been so interesting for USC this offseason. First, you see them be able to sway Lincoln Riley from Oklahoma. And then, of course, the news coming out about them leaving the Pac 12. But nonetheless, the expectations are high in Los Angeles for this team. And UCLA did it on the free agency market, if you will. Quarterback Caleb Williams, the Oklahoma transfer, running back Travis Dye, the Oregon transfer, and then wide receiver Jordan Addison, the Pitt transfer. All of these players that I mentioned are highly skilled at what they do. And it's going to be interesting to see how they all mesh and gel this season for the Trojans. Now, USC definitely has to get better on the defensive side of the football, but a couple of players to keep an eye out for are sophomore strong safety Xavion Alford, as well as senior outside linebacker Raylan Goforth. Now, for USC, I think they'll be in the mix, but they do have an interesting schedule at Stanford on September 10th. They're at Utah on the 15th of October, and that's always a difficult game for USC going to Salt Lake City. They're at UCLA on the 19th of November, and this game could decide who wins the Pac-12 South. And then, of course, SC finishes the regular season at home on the 26th of November against the Fighting Irish of Notre Dame. Now, for Arizona State and Herman Edwards, they want to bounce back and they want to make some noise in the Pac-12 South. This has been an interesting offseason in the desert for the Sun Devils. As you know, there were some people who wanted to see Herman Edwards relieved of his duties. We saw a quarterback change there, and it's now going to be Emory Jones, the Florida transfer, under center, running this offense for Arizona State, as opposed to Jaden Daniels, who transferred to LSU. Now, for Arizona State, they host Utah on September 24th. They're at USC on the 1st of October, and that's always an interesting game between these two in the Pac-12 South. They host UCLA on November 5th, and the way that both of these offenses could score, the first team to 50 more than likely wins this one. And then, of course, finishing up with the Commonwealth Cup against Arizona on the 25th of November, and they'll be traveling to Tucson for that game. And speaking of Arizona, they're trying to find their way into Pac-12 this year, and the same thing can be the case for Colorado. And with that said, I really do not expect that much out of them. But when it's all said and done, I think that we're going to see a Pac-12 championship game between Oregon State and UCLA. Those are my two picks this year to get it done. I like the experience that Oregon State has. They have the most solid ground under them, if you will, among Pac-12 North teams heading into this year, and I think they should be able to take advantage of that transition stage for Oregon. And on the flip side in the South, I think this is going to be UCLA's best opportunity to win the Pac-12. You figure, I think Utah State takes a step back. I think USC will spend this year trying to get their footing under Lincoln Riley. I think they're still going to be good. I think they're still going to be exciting. But I think UCLA, with more experience and more seasoning, if you will, should have an opportunity to get to the Pac-12 championship game. And when it's all said and done, I'm going to pick the Bruins to come out and win the Pac-12, defeat Oregon State in the Pac-12 championship game. Parting gift, if you will, as UCLA is looking to leave for the Big Ten. But nonetheless, I think we should still see a very exciting brand of football this year in the Pac-12. I think the race in the North is going to be very good between Oregon and Oregon State. I think they are the top two teams in that division. I think it's going to be a three-team race in the South between Utah, USC, and UCLA. I think Stanford should be improved. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with Washington, but nonetheless, I think we are in store for a good, solid brand of action coming to us this fall from the Pac-12. So, folks, that is going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. I want to take the time out to thank all of you fine folks out there for tuning in. And if you have not already, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. Now, if you're on Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it'll be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. You can check it out. Drop a line and be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. So once again, fine folks, my name is William Martin. I am signing off, saying take care and have yourselves a wonderful day.